The following program contains information of an intimate and sexual nature and is designed for adult use only. It is not suitable for persons under 18 years of age.
Hello and welcome to the Prostate Zone. I'm Alan.
And I'm Fiona.
And today we're going to be talking about intimacy, relationships and sex.
We want to let you know before we start that under the old rating system, what we're about to discuss would probably come under the category of R, adults only. So make sure there's no kids around. We will be discussing genitals and other things, so just be warned.
And so before we jump in about talking about intimacy, relationships and sex, I believe, or we believe, that it's an area that's not often discussed following prostate cancer treatment, and particularly when it's surgery, is a sense of grief and loss for the couples. And what do I mean by grief and loss? Do you have a chance to grieve about the loss? Have you discussed with your partner what the loss is? How it's impacted on the relationship? And were you expecting that to happen as well?
What was the loss?
Well, the loss is, for men, is the loss of erectile functioning. So most men take it for granted that they'll just continue to get erections and have sex. But if it's surgery and long-term radiotherapy treatment, that is a loss. But it's never discussed. Men think they just continue to get an erection. And in fact, men, as they all get older, and in particular hit their 40s, 1 in 5 men will start to lose erections because of changes that happen. So here's some figures. Over a lifetime, men are having 3 to 5 nocturnal, that's nighttime erections, because that's the way the body keeps track and keeps the penis healthy with fresh blood and oxygen. Losing your prostate, mate, to surgery, you lose that erection overnight. And we're looking at around 12 to 1,500 natural erections men are going to lose. So that is a loss for the man straight away, particularly if he wasn't really expecting that. And if you're having difficulties with that, sometimes it's useful, isn't it, Fiona, to engage a professional to sort out what is going on for you.
It isn't always necessary, but as always, some men find it really difficult and it impacts their relationship.
Definitely.
And it can also impact their overall sense of well-being, and for some people that can be catastrophic. So if you really are struggling out there, don't hesitate. Go and see someone, a professional.
And also for men, not all men, but for some men, there's a deep sense of loss, and in particular, their sense of masculinity. It's something they've grown up with. They expect to be able to have erections, have sex with whoever they want to have sex with. And all of a sudden, particularly for surgery, that has gone overnight. In general, every man will respond differently. The response can often be, well, you're still alive, move on. Well, that's that's a real deep one. Move on. Yeah, like, I've just lost my prostate and lost my erection, and I'm going to move on naturally. Well, for some men, that may happen. But the other aspect of dealing with surgery is the impact of incontinence. And again, every man will deal differently with it and recover more quickly with it, and others can take it longer to do so. I guess with incontinence, that its impact of having an erection is that when men do get their erections back, and because they're attempting to control their continence issues, that there could be a leak when they have an orgasm, and if they don't know about that, that certainly impacts their sense of well-being and control. And I guess part of that loss and grief is it's a transition. We have losses through our lives, and this is a huge one for men and their partners, if they can acknowledge the loss and find new ways of engaging. And sometimes you may not feel you have the right to feel so sad about it. And I think the first thing that you agree, Fiona, is that you've got to be able to accept there is a loss and find a new way of transitioning to doing things differently.
And that's where that old saying, suck it up, princess, comes in. You know, people say, oh, what are you complaining about? You're still alive. Well, okay, still alive is great, but there's that quality of life issue.
Yeah.
So especially where sex was an important part of a relationship, for some people it really isn't. And then that probably doesn't affect them as much. But for a lot of people, it is part of what binds them to one another and gives them pleasure and helps them in their daily activities together.
Well, should we talk about how it impacted us? Because this is our second marriage for both of us, so better second time around. And I guess my diagnosis was in early 2000. Without going into a great long story, I was able to do active surveillance, or what I call active management. So we've been married 2 years when the cancer became aggressive. And what was your first thought?
For God's sake, get that thing out. I don't want to lose my husband. I really freaked out. I wanted Alan to go and have surgery immediately, but he was less keen to sort of jump in and make an appointment on the spot.
Yeah, and I needed time to get my head around what had happened. But I guess what I'm alluding to is that for us in our second marriage, and we're intimate most the times, we were really enjoying our sex together. So all of a sudden, that was impacted straight away. So it's important to understand what the relationship is about, what you both expect following surgery, and how to do things differently, I guess, isn't it, really?
Well, that's right. And right now, I think it's important to say that after all these years since Alan's prostate cancer surgery back in 2011, our sex life is unfolding almost on a daily basis. We never really know what's going to happen.
No.
Because curveballs come up as you get older. Things like menopause jump in, illness, drugs, not the illegal variety. They get involved, and so nothing is the same.
No, it's not. And the relationship is important. So what we've discovered is that the state of the relationship will determine how the couple move forward. And I guess for some couples who've been married for a long time, that'll impact on how they do that as well. So it's important, again, to seek professional help if need be to navigate those side issues, to navigate the changes or the transition to doing things differently. I guess for most couples who have been married for a long time, there's no children involved, so the house is open up to do what you need to do. So when we talk about the relationship, how much goodwill isn't the relationship itself?
Oh, yes. Now, this is a point where I want to show you one of my absolute favourite books, Where Did My Libido Go? By Dr. Rosie King. She's an Australian author. And one of the things that I really love about this book is that Rosie talks about what libido is and why your libido might fluctuate. And often some of the reasons for that fluctuation involve how things are sitting within the relationship. And I'm sure that people out there understand what we're talking about, because when you have a bad day and you and your partner are a bit scratchy within the relationship, that really impacts the desire to be intimate. I mean, if I've just been doing something and Alan snapped at me for some reason, which he sometimes does, I can tell you that that is an absolute libido killer then and there. And that can happen quite a lot, especially in a long-term relationship, because that sort of honeymoon glow can fade and then everyday life comes in and people get ratty with one another. And if you don't address those things pretty soon after they've happened to clear them, they can build up over the years and people can become very resentful, which unfortunately then when something like prostate cancer or any cancer comes along, it can really pull the rug out from under a couple. So that's a really important one.
Yes, and libido and desire often get mixed up.
Yes.
And as you said, over a period of time, the life, the impact of children and grandchildren, finance, the whole plethora of stuff that creates the space in the relationship, and that space gets filled up with that stuff. It's unpacking that stuff to add to that desire and libido. So often there's a mixture about what we do about it, which leads us to intimacy and sex. So
yes, what is intimacy and what is sex? Well, sex is actually an act. You can do it on your own, you
Yep.
can do it with another person, you can do it with multiple people if you want to. But intimacy is different. Intimacy is like the lubrication that keeps people getting on well together. It's really about affection. It's about being kind to one another, supportive, respectful, just those little things. Like, for instance, I really love it when Alan offers to cook dinner. I think that's just wonderful. And that boosts my goodwill towards him, which lifts my desire likelihood. So these are the little things that every day can make a difference. So by saying something nice, by saying, oh, Fiona, you look particularly beautiful today, or you're looking sexy, that is actually incredibly positive, and it builds desire, it builds connection. And those are the things that all of us can do instead of doing the opposite, which is, oh, for God's sake, you forgot to take the bloody bins out again. Oh, why are you wearing that? It's really dirty. You look disgusting. Or, did you leave the toilet seat up? Etc.
Okay, that's enough. My desire's gone. Totally
Exactly.
gone. That's not working for me. So it's building up that goodwill. You keep depositing little acts every day to keep the glue in the relationship. And it's not going to be perfect. We're humans. There'll be days when it happens. So I guess it's stepping up to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Maybe you don't need to unpack it too much. But building that goodwill into the relationship is important. And there'd be simple things like holding hands, cuddling, sleeping naked. This is what we do.
Yes.
We sleep naked. I used to wear a t-shirt, and Fiona found that a bit of an off-putting.
It's a passion killer.
But we've made adjustments to that. So just the skin contact can provide that intimacy for both.
Yeah, and this is something for men and their partners to think about, because if there is no ability for the penis to get up and do its thing, you can lose that tactile connection with your partner. And a simple thing like cuddling in bed, spooning in bed, which is how Alan gets off to sleep faster than anything, that really can help to fill that void, because otherwise people don't understand that they can really drift apart, because the sex or the sex can have been what was keeping them intimate and what's keeping them physically bonded. And if the sex is suddenly removed, what do you have in its place?
Yes.
And for us, I'm a groper. If Alan's doing the dishes, I'll come up behind him and squeeze his bottom. I'll pounce on him at night before I get into bed, etc. These kind of things. And he's also a groper. So these are things that help us during the day just to establish the fact that we find each other sexy, we find each other attractive. Millions might not, but hey. So that's important. And these are really simple things that you can make sure that you include in your life.
And also just holding hands, having a kiss. So when we say a kiss on the lips, we're not talking about a kiss on the cheek like you're kissing your grandmother or your great aunt. Do a 6-second kiss. You go, in 6 seconds, that's a long time. But you may find starts to build up a bit of, oh, something's happening here. And lips are highly sensitive.
Erogenous zone.
It's erogenous zone, but the whole body actually is erogenous. And what probably men don't realise, that we can become very genital orientated. We can be looking to get the erection up and forgetting that following surgery, there is changes in the nervous system. So your whole body can become part of that erogenous area to raise up that desire, to maybe get the libido getting up and running again. And for men following prostate cancer or any treatments, a lot of research has come out now finding doing exercise regularly with some gym work can also lead to that libido coming up, which is very important. But that 6-second kiss, if it becomes something you do regularly, or even in the morning to kiss on the cheek, that's nice. But on the lips, totally different show. So it becomes one way of building that desire, but also keeping connected, learning to massage without expecting something to happen at the end of the massage. It's giving and taking from that goodwill, that piggy bank of goodwill, which is really important. in that relationship.
And that's what Rosie King talks about in her book. She talks about having a goodwill piggy bank that you keep feeding with the good things that you do for one another each day. And you don't want that piggy bank to be drained. So that's a really important thing to remember. And some of the things I think it can be useful to think about in a situation where someone has cancer, whether it's prostate cancer or anything else. It can take such an impact, have such an impact on them that they don't even notice what's going on for them. So if you do notice that your partner is suddenly not taking that little bit of extra care, they might be wearing the same clothes for more than a few days. They might not be brushing their hair. They might be not bothering to shave. They might be slopping around the house, not really looking after themselves.
Yeah.
And that could be a really good sign that something needs to change.
Yep.
And you need to maybe gently bring it up with them and deal with it, or even go and have some professional help.
Yep.
Because just making that little bit of extra effort, wearing a bit of fragrance, making sure that you've got a bit of lippy on or something if you want to do that, either party. These are things that can make a really big difference to how you feel about yourself and help to lift your mood, which can really make a big difference to you and also to make a big difference to the relationship.
That's right. And I guess once that's established, then the male then can concentrate once he's had surgery, how we get things up and running again. So we're talking about rehabilitation. And for most men who are facing surgery, there'll be what's called pre-penis rehabilitation. So it's making sure you use the pump.
Prehab.
So this is one of the devices that are important to use pre and post surgery once the catheters come out, etc. It's important to get fresh oxygen into the system and blood. So this could be part of your rehabilitation, and it could become part of your engagement with your partner and getting your erections up. That's just one of the devices. It's quite easy to use. It's very small. You have a number of rings that attach to the bottom of it.
Rings are in there.
The rings are in the container here. So they go on the bottom. Your penis goes inside. You create a vacuum that draws that blood into the penis. So you get oxygen to a degree. You can use it in the shower as well. There's no batteries. That's a very simple device. This is important for men following surgery to get that happening along the way. And also, one of our little sex toys we have. This is another way. It's a vibrator. It wraps around your penis. Another way of stimulating the nerves and also giving yourself pleasure if you don't have a partner. It's important to those men who may not be engaged with a partner of taking care of your own health and well-being, and this is just one of the many ways. We have resources at the end of it. You can find out where these are available from.
Also, I think it's important to remember that masturbation is a way of helping your penis. So if you're not able to have an erection, you can still have orgasms. We discovered that quite early on after Alan came home, after the catheter came out, and his penis was this tiny little purple thing that looked really sorry for itself. And I can remember thinking, oh, you poor thing, and just touching it. And Alan actually had an orgasm. We were stunned because we didn't know that you could have an orgasm with a limp penis, but now we do.
Yes, and of course it took a bit more than just a few strokes and relaxing into it. And of course what we don't have here is the injections. And most men will freak out, think I'm going to stick a needle in my penis, but for some men it works quite well. So there's called Trimix and Cavajet, different ways of the formulation used. But that's another way of getting an erection. They work very well. They engorge the penis with blood, oxygenated blood, so you're able to have sex. So you can even use that as part of your penis rehab, whether you have sex or not, but it's getting that movement and stretching. That's the importance with the pump, is stretching your penis, because you will lose length and girth. So it's important you're able to stretch him out and get fresh oxygen and stretch that muscle system as well. So again, it can be masturbation in the shower or with your partner. There's more than one way to have sex, but also taking care of your own body is important to do that as well.
I think it's also important at this point to mention that after prostate cancer treatment, getting an erection, if you can get an erection, excellent, but there is a difference. There is a difference in terms of how actually rigid the penis is
Yeah.
in that erection, because I like to think of it as being like a raw sausage versus a stick of cabana. The stick of cabana it's filling out that skin just as the sausage is, but the sausage is kind of a bit floppy, whereas the cabana is really firm, like you could whack something with it. It's not going to bend. It's quite stiff and erect. Whereas after prostate cancer treatment, the penis has a tendency to be a bit more like the uncooked sausage. It's still engorged, but it doesn't have that rigidity. So one of the things that I think the injections have a tendency to do, in our experience anyway, is to create more of that rigidity. It makes it a little bit more hard. For some men, perhaps using the pump and using the ring around it might be sufficient for them. But I think after prostate cancer treatment, I think most men would agree that their erections are not the same as they were beforehand.
No, and I think what men, as I've mentioned earlier, forget that as we get older, the ability to get erections start to go down and they can lose some of that firmness. And now you could have cardiovascular disease, you might have diabetes, there may be impacts from medication you've taken, all will impact on your ability to get an erection. But also, what I think may not be aware that if you are taking statins, I believe, for your cholesterol, we discovered recently that they can impact your libido to a degree, but also your production of testosterone. Now, testosterone doesn't totally contribute to the libido, but it's all a bit of a jigsaw. All these little things need to be examined, and I guess, and to step back and go, look what I'm taking, what medications I'm on, what are they doing to my system, and what can we do to get around that? It's important.
And one of the things I think that we need to mention also is different medications can really significantly impact your libido and also your ability to reach orgasm or to have a really exciting orgasm. I take antidepressants, and those antidepressants actually have killed my libido. It's completely flat. I do my best to fake it till I make it, but that is a factor. And I think it's really important to know that that's also where communicating is very important, because if you have a problem with your libido that is caused by something and you don't tell your partner about that, your partner can perceive your decreased libido as meaning that you don't find them attractive anymore, that you think you don't want to have sex with them, or that you're having an affair. All of these things, if you can't talk to your partner and explain why you have these problems, it can really impact you. And so I think together, if you explain what's going on for you, you can get help from your partner to overcome whatever that issue is.
Yeah, and what I think men maybe forget, if we just go back the whole erection detail, which can become too focused, is that the most important sex organ for men and for women is your brain. It's the hard drive upstairs, producing fantasies, getting those signals down to below your pelvis and into your nerves and into the erection details. So using your brain as well, and not expecting to take the magic little blue pill or Levitra or Cialis or whatever you may be taking. They all need stimulation.
Yes, that's a good point, because I think within the media generally and in conversations, there tends to be this idea that taking a Viagra or a similar kind of pill is instant erection. Boing! You take the pill, boing! Up comes the erection. Well, that's complete. Well, maybe it works for an 18-year-old, I don't know. But it certainly doesn't really work like that for older men and for men who have had treatment for prostate cancer. You can take the pill and it might give you some side effects, like you might get a bit of a fuzzy head or
Bluey screen, bluey looking in the eye, but it needs stimulation.
you need to focus, and you need to stroke, and you need to think about what you're going to do in order to actually get your penis to react. Then the chemicals within the tablet will be able to help you but you do need to do that.
Yeah, it's not good. Look, for some men, it may work quite well. Everyone's different. I think that's what we have to emphasize. Yes, you have to do that, but it's important to be aware of the signals. Yeah, to get those signals down to the bottom, because it's being cut. The nerves are being traumatized, they're being cut, and depending on how well the surgery went. And look, some men can have what's called nerve sparing, and it takes them 2 years to get their erections back. Some men can only have half a nerve sparing and their erections are back within, maybe 6 months. And the urologists don't really know why. And then the important thing is to remember that when they go in, particularly for surgery, even though they've done MRIs and they know what's going on, it's not till they go internally in and have a look to work out what they're going to do next. So an expectation, I guess, I'm going to be saved. Yes, you will be. But how your body responds and heals is another important aspect. And that's where you've got to put the work in to get that happening. So it's important to be open to transitions, be open to losing certain things in your life. There's a bit of grief about that, and acknowledge it and allow it rather than suppressing it, and talk to your partner about it so you can get moved through that and accept that there are changes for us and how can we do things differently. And we have a range of books we refer people to and courses. Find out what works for your particular situation and how you want to move forward. Now, we've talked a lot about injections and tablets, but for some men, they just don't work. So what is another option? There are a couple of things you can look at for surgery. There's penile implants, which are rigid, which means you pump them up, or semi-malleable implants. So there are two options for men. You can be done under the public health system, which you probably wait in a couple of years, or it's private system. Another option is talking to a Dr. Dangerfield, a urologist here in Melbourne, who, along with his associate and colleague Chris Coombs, they're doing what's called side-to-nerve grafting. Now, this has been around for a long time, but they've been able to refine the way it's carried out and getting great results. But again, like all treatments, you need to meet the criteria. So generally, they don't work on men over 70 because our nerves take too long to regenerate. But for most men who are under 70, and we're even talking about a couple of years down the track after losing their prostate, mate, it's worked quite well. So that's another option to consider, and there's more information on our website.
Now, this is the point where I want to interject, because I want to say, what about the ladies? Now, for those men out there who have partners who are not ladies, or those men who have no partner, I'm sorry, I'm going to be talking about the female problem, which is a lot of men who are at the point where they're getting prostate cancer, their partners, if they do have one and that she's female, will possibly be perimenopausal or even postmenopausal. And menopause is an absolute shocker. I discovered that not only do you dry up, which I was expecting, but you can also shrink. When I say you, specifically your vagina. Now, I do have another favourite book, Me and My Menopausal Vagina. This is a fabulous book, and I suggest that all women read it, and possibly all men. I learned things about my own vagina by reading that book. But what we discovered was we had the problem of Alan's not as firm penis and not as reliable erections at the same time as I suddenly was drying and shrinking. So we tried a number of things. We tried Replens, which is a vaginal moisturiser. That one comes in little packages like that, which contains an applicator and some fluid, and you insert that, and that is supposed to help replenish the moisturiser internally. That was working all right for a little while, but then it just got drier and drier. So I started to use Ovestin, which is actually a pessary. They look like these little bullet-shaped things. And one of those goes inside the vagina, and I use them usually twice a week. And that helps to give me a bit of estrogen down there, which improves things. Then I went through vaginismus, which is a great word. And it basically means sex was painful, and my vagina decided that whenever Alan's penis came near it, it would put up the gates. It would say, you're not getting in there because I know that's going to hurt. And that was a real problem. So I looked it up online and I found these wonderful things. These are called dilators. And I have a nice little set of 5. And using some lovely lubricant like Olive and Bee, which is pure olive oil and beeswax, Australian made, slather one of these with that, relax, be calm, lie back and just very gently insert. And you can retrain your vagina to not be afraid of a penis or anything else that's going to go up there, which we won't discuss. So those are really helpful things to know. And of course, on the pleasure front, Alan gets very jealous of this. This is actually my vibrator. It's actually more of a clitoris sucker. And it's called a womanizer, which is a very bad name, but it's an excellent toy. So, and also we have our little lubes. This one's really fun. It's called On, and it's a arousal oil. So a couple of little drops, put that around the clitoris, and it kind of, like some essential oils, it draws the blood flow to that area, so it's stimulating. And also we learned that you have to get good quality lubricant, because most of the lubricants that are out there on the market, they're fine for men, but they're not good for women, because they actually draw moisture out of the cells and make you even drier. So this one that I got from Passion Fruit, the sexuality store, is called Sliquid Satin, and it is not one of those hydrophilic ones. So these are all things that help women, but you also have to remember things like body image. As we go through menopause, it's quite common to put on a lot of weight.
Yep.
And to feel pretty bad about that, because it's hard to shift that weight. I go to the gym once a week. I try to walk more often, but hanging on to that weight is really difficult. So try as much as possible to have a positive conception of yourself. Fake it till you make it. Forget the fact that you've got more weight on you than you used to have. Still be proud to, show off your naked body to your partner and shake it around and have fun and believe that you are still sexy. These are things that I think can be really helpful for women.
Yes, and also making effort on both sides of the fence is important, but also looking at how you can do things differently. And look, as Fiona's mentioned earlier, you may be at a stage in your life that sex is no longer important, but you may be doing things differently. You may be just cuddling, holding hands. We're not saying you have to be out there and keeping it going. Changes occur. You've had physical disabilities. You may have had operations in the past that impacted it. We're not saying you have to be out there and going like a couple of rabbits, but it's important to make changes and be ready to do things differently. And we've talked about holding hands, six-sticking kisses,
Yes.
Massaging, doing things differently for each other. Talking's important. Communication is the most important thing. So
Communication is lubrication.
that's exactly right. So it can be done differently. And of course, we have our go-to resources, which can be seen below. That'll have a list of books.
It's also on our website,
On our
on a
website.
resources page.
Yep. So it's not the be-all and end-all, but it gives you a starting block to start looking about doing things differently.
Yes.
And even though we've talked about how we've done it differently, it's important to remember our hard drive, our brain's the one that really drives stuff and drives changes for you. But everyone is different. This is just one view. It's what you want out of the relationship. What do you want to do differently going forward? And accept things are different. It's transitions. We have transitions throughout our lives.
Yes.
And this is the big one for the couple. Maybe often, well, not maybe, it's a big one for men if they're not prepared for it. And it's come out of left field. All of a sudden they've had their blood test, their prostate specific antigen's gone up high, they've had a MRI and a biopsy, and all of a sudden they've got prostate cancer. For some men that didn't even know they had a prostate and what it did. So that really comes out of what the hell am I supposed to do now? So it's important to engage with others. And in fact, if you have been diagnosed with prostate cancer and dealing with it, consider going looking for a prostate cancer support group. and hear how other men have dealt with it. And for some men, they don't want to sit around and talking about their cancer all day. Well, it's not how it functions. There's a lot of laughter. You get to how other men have dealt with incontinence, how they've gone with injections, what they've done about their diagnosis. They even talk about possibly a second opinion. It's support. You're all in the same boat and all rowing together, but it's that support you can get. And for some men, they go along, hear what they have to do or what consider other options, and then they leave. And that's okay. But you're not the only man who's being diagnosed with prostate cancer. Remember that. And there are support groups out there that can support you and your partner. And the Prostate Cancer Foundation has helpline.
Telenursing.
Telenursing, another way of reaching out for support as well. So you don't have to do this solo.
Actually, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see 3 videos with Colin, who talks about his penile implant. And I think that's a really good way to get a sense of what it involves and how he went about doing it. You can actually see a model of it, not Colin himself. And I think that's worth doing. But if you wanted to find out a bit more about what you can do to help yourself with what you've got left, you can't go past Victoria Cullen's website, A Touchy Subject.
That's right.
Victoria is amazing, and this website gives you access to, for one thing, a free rehabilitation program. If you sign up, you will get 6 weekly modules sent to you, which include things like why penile rehab is key to restoring erectile function. You can uncover 3 ways to create an erection. You can explore sex as more than just a sexual act. These are fantastic, so we will put that information up for you.
Yeah, and go on, sorry.
If you find that that's been helpful for you, you may want to sign up to join Victoria's Hub. That's a paid hub where you pay a monthly amount and you gain access to a lot of videos, a lot of webinars, etc. It's really useful. And the other person whom we believe is worth visiting is Tess Deveze. Tess has a website called
Well, the book comes out
Connectable
of the website.
Therapies.
Connectable Therapy.
Connectable Therapies. We'll
the
put
book
that
that-
link up.
And this is the book that she's produced about a better normal. So it's for couples wanting to find other ways of reconnecting and not being totally focused on getting the erection. So this is great, whether you've had cancer or not. It can be useful to bring couples back closer together. There may have been surgery for some other reason, maybe disability. So it's, even though it is talking about people impacted by cancer, we found that a lot of the exercises can be very useful for reconnecting with your partner. This book is quite useful.
I'd like to say at this point that one of the things that Alan learned from the course, because we actually did the online course, it's a 6-week online course, and she's distilled that into the book. But during the course, it was very helpful for Alan to learn to stop focusing on the goal because, like a lot of men, it's very goal oriented. It's like, get that erection, get penetration, achieve orgasm, done. But that's not really the way that it works best post prostate cancer. And it certainly isn't the best way always for a partner. So we can highly recommend Tess's website as well, and we'll put that information out there for you.
So that's all the information we're able to give to you at the moment. Where the information will be on our website. You can check a whole range of topics we've covered, including today. And remember, communication is lubrication.
Thank you.
Thank you.